everybody. I'm Stacey J.
And I'm Chuck Duran.
Welcome to episode 99.
99!
Of VO Buzz Weekly.
And part 2 with the Promo Kings. But, you know what? We're still here at Joe Cipriano's clubhouse. I don't think we're going to leave this place.
Not anytime soon.
No.
Come with us.
Let's go talk to the guys now.
For those just starting out in the voiceover business and wanting to focus on promo or trailer work, or for those seasoned pros wanting to move their work into the promo arena, who are the best teachers or classes?
You guys know any?
Or even to add on, or things that they can work on. It's even like skills on your own, whether it's reading or, you know, to help with timing and things
I think it's important to work with a number of different coaches so that you don't kind of get into a groove and you get more input. Yeah. So I've worked with like Maurice Tobias and David Lyerly in New York and Joyce.
I started with Kelmanson and Kelmanson when it was in Harvey Kelmanson's garage, you know, back then.
Really?
I worked with Elaine Craig. I worked at the Voicecaster in their workshops. And I'm like Joe. I took so many. I was always in a workshop trying new things. And part of the reason is because we have so many different directors that you have to really be directed by a lot of people. I think that's a key to our business, is trying to understand a language. And by working with many different coaches, I would say that's a key.
I'm not so, I don't know, I'm not the authority in terms of who the good teachers are. I've worked with Joyce for many years. She's fantastic. Joyce Castellanos.
Oh yeah, Joyce is
Joyce
awesome.
is great.
And there's many great teachers out there, but I think that I went to theater school for 2 years straight, and I was an actor before that. I think that basically if you just work on your acting and you're being comfortable with yourself, and the two best things I ever heard were just reading out loud, and usually not on your own, but reading to the blind. I know a guy in Canada, a French-Canadian guy, who made his entire career by reading day in and day out to the blind. You read magazines, periodicals, the newspaper out loud so that they can hear it, which is also a great charitable thing to do, and you donate your time and at the same time you practice, or reading to children, because you'll know if you're doing well, whether they're interested or not. And beyond that, I was just going to say, when you do workshops, I think there's so much pressure when you're in, or there can be when you're in a place like that, to try to sound great or try to do well. And I think the thing to remember is you're in a workshop to learn, and thus, therefore, just like in an acting class, you're not supposed to be amazing or not amazing. You're supposed to try things, go out on a limb. So that's the only advice I give. Make your mistakes. Take a chance. Fall on your face.
That is where you want to make mistakes.
And frankly, even when you're performing, I believe in it, meaning you don't want to make mistakes, but you want to just take a chance.
I also just want to say one thing quickly, is that a lot of times when people are starting off, they figure, well, who works a lot? Scott Rummell works. I'm going to sound like him. And that's not, you got to come from within and be yourself, because, just be yourself, because guess what? Nobody else is doing that, and that's what makes you unique.
That's interesting, because my training is only in theater too, like in acting school. I've never done any other workshops. But I really like that, and that's what they teach you in acting school too, is that you bring what you bring. So you know, no one else can sound exactly like me. And what's fascinating to me is that after doing this now for a number of years, people still think that the guy, it's Don, that they refer to Don, the guy, LaFontaine, obviously, who obviously was a legend, but it's like I encourage people to pay attention, to really pay attention, or to go on Voicecaster and Voice Bank and hear the different voices and appreciate how different they are. They all might have a similar timbre, and they tend to in promo, but you have a style, and I think that's great advice to not try. I think I tried to do that early on too, thinking that that was the best way to go, and it's not. I mean, I actually started to work a lot more when I sort of embraced what I bring to the table. I did want to say one more thing about someone like Joyce, though. Someone that's working and hearing guys. Joyce was one of the first people that I ever worked with at the WB at the time, and that is, they have to have, I mean, it's just the best insight, because they hear us, they hear promos every day, all day long. They really know not only what you should be doing, but what people are looking for.
Well, kind of on that note, let's go. Dean White asking, does each network you work for have its own sound or style? Because you guys cross over. You're not exclusive to one network. God love you. You get to work on dramas and comedies and reality and game shows and competition shows. And so do you notice, okay, there's a certain specific style for each network or each genre within the network event?
Well, as much as we work for other networks, though, it's what's interesting is that it's a family. The producers and the writers and the editors, they're also kind of bouncing around. So someone that you worked with a few years ago at ABC and now might be at the CW. And so I think that it just, aside from that sort of balances things out, I think, in terms of there being, you know, a particular voice at a network. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
I think it really comes down to the show.
Yeah.
Right.
And the time period.
And the first time you're reading that first promo for a new show, you're hearing the sound of the music, you're hearing the effects. So you really get a sense of what the show is like. So it's not really a personality of a network as it is a personality of whatever the show is. So if it's a deep, dark show like Sleepy Hollow, or if it's something fun and light like Extreme Makeover Home Edition or inspirational, that's what really dictates the style, I think.
There used to be a time, in what you're talking about, the sound of a network, where there was one voice. Like, for example, when I started and Fox came on the scene, everybody sounded like Bertie Anderson and all, and there was no way this voice was going to work on a network. Right. Fox decided they were going to do something different, flip the programming, make it outrageous, and change what the sound of it would be. So there were these announcers or voiceover people that were the voice of the network. Actually, Rino still has that at NBC, because there's really not that many other voices that work at NBC.
Thank God, knock wood. But, and we are, by the way.
So you are the sound of that.
Yeah. Well, Scott was talking earlier, and Mike touched on it too, about trying to sound like people when you first started. I mean, we all do this. We do it inadvertently. You do it on purpose. When I was trying to get into trailers, and I'm still trying to get into trailers, meaning I do them, but for a long time I made the mistake of trying really hard to sound like, not so much somebody else, but just what I thought it was supposed to sound like. And at the end of the day, even if you end up actually sounding exactly like the other guy or exactly like it's supposed to sound, it rings untrue and it's hollow. And I've finally come to realize, and even though I know it, I still can't always do it, that you just have to, A, be yourself and really bring yourself to it. And at the end of the day, the late, great Don LaFontaine, at a Christmas party, you know, there's legendary stories about he'd take people down to the booth and, you know, work with them. Well, we were down there, Kevin Michael Richardson and I, and he did give us an impromptu, and Jess, by the way, it was me, Jess, and Kevin.
Nice.
And give us an impromptu half-an-hour private coaching lesson. It was like the greatest thing ever. And of all the things he said, the thing I remember the most was he said, just tell the truth. And it's an acting thing too. You think about how you're going to deliver a line, you think, oh, I'm going to be mad, I'm going to do this. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you actually do. If you feel a thing, it'll come out, it'll just ring true.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing, talking about taking classes and coaching, you just always have to tell the truth. And then on top of that, you can layer on whatever you want to layer on. Layer on some excitement, layer on a lot of excitement. Well, how do you do that? You sound all excited, it sounds fake. No, it's not fake. Because as long as you really believe it,
legitimately,
and then you just lay on it, you lay the hell out of it, then you're just...
Exactly.
Well, typically, you guys are all working a lot and mostly from your home studios, so do you typically self-direct for your jobs and or auditions, or are you ISDNing and source connecting, or how do you, when you're looking at that copy, obviously you have paid your dues and you have the chops and you've had the skills and you've put in the time, but any ideas for anyone about self-direction? Any tips or keys to that?
A lot of our gigs, I mean, the network gigs are clearly directed,
right,
live or over the ISDN line. But I feel like you have to be, in terms of this. I was going to say this earlier too. That it's not so much a particular sound for a network, but it's like a trend. So like you have a trend, a style for this year that might change in a couple of years. And if you want to still be a player, you have to be adaptable to that. So I think that in terms of we direct ourselves on gigs that are unsupervised a lot. And I think that I have so much more confidence in myself having been directed for the other jobs,
Yeah.
I don't know that I have any particular advice other than to give people options. I find that I have more success when I offer some variety, maybe that something is down the middle that I think is solid, and then try to push, like Rino was saying too, you sort of, you push the envelope a little bit and show them some variety, because sometimes I think sometimes I think those are the guys that win, or it's like you sort of, they're like, oh, that's what I wanted, but
you can always pull it back, but can you go too far, because they want to be able to see that you can do that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Music for me, again, music always helps, and that helps me set the mood on where I'm going and all of that.
Yeah, if you've got your setup all fancy, if you play a little music really low so it doesn't bleed through the cans, that's a phenomenal thing to do. I don't do it very often, but that is a phenomenal way to do it. Scott?
Well, same as Joe, whenever I'm doing a session that's, first of all, I hate doing self-directed sessions. And I don't know what it is, but I would really rather just please a director and have the director say, here's what we're looking for, and then do that. I had to do a self-directed session yesterday, and then I did what Mike said, which is I gave them options. Because sometimes you're just guessing. They got a completely different thing in their head, and even though I've done tons of work, they're just expecting I'll know what they're thinking. And so, you know, there's a funny story where I was on a movie campaign for a long time, and I thought it was a Western. And when I finally saw the commercial, it had nothing to do with the West.
You're
it was
kidding.
no. It was like,
how could they?
You know,
they have not didn't tell you.
It was just the way I was reading the copy and stuff, and so it's really.
Funny.
It's really, for me, whenever my agent calls and says, hey, can you just do this thing? I just go, gosh, can we please just have somebody, have somebody. And then if I'm connecting like to one of the studios, I actually depend on the engineer to say, hey, what do you think? And, you know, because I like to be directed, and that's just it. And self-direction, again, if you're doing that, you have to give them options. And with today's technology, it's easy to do that. You know?
It is. And you know, there is an interesting thing where you'll get a direction, you know, you're going to self-direct yourself. They say, we're looking for a Kiefer Sutherland type. And you go, oh, and I'll go and I'll listen to some Kiefer Sutherland stuff, and okay, I know what they're talking about. And then it's not at all what they're looking for. What they really meant was, when they say a Kiefer Sutherland, not what he sounds like, what he looks like, and what his persona is, not his
attitude,
not his actual sound.
So it's like,
that's
sometimes when they say that, they're basically just calling out guys they like.
I guess.
I like that guy. Like, you know, basically his honesty or his persona, his swagger, whatever it is. If the guy's a tough guy.
I want what he feels like, not what he sounds like.
A couple things about what Scott was saying too, though. He mentioned earlier how, you know, if you're already working for a network and there's a new show on the horizon and they're looking for a voice, then you have the privilege of seeing a spot or at least hearing some music to give you an idea of what it's about. But so many auditions now are the unsupervised kind where it's a brief description of the show and that's all you get. So as far as advice goes, I think that options are always a good thing. In terms of what you said about being directed, I mean, I fought that tooth and nail. I eventually realized that if I didn't learn how to do this stuff, then I was going to lose jobs. But, you know, as an actor too, voiceover already is something that has so little reward from the audience. You know, when you're even in a session where you're being directed, there's no applause, there's nothing, you know, it's nothing over the top. You don't really know how well you're doing, especially early on.
You don't get applause?
Oh well.
I have that on. I do that. I play it.
That's like your music. Yeah, I like that. I need an applause track apparently. But anyway, that's another reason that I just like to. It's the actor in me, I guess, but it's knowing that it was a good job. It's like, hey, thumbs up, good job, did a good job. And you might stay on this show for another day.
Well, that's why when it comes to self-directing, I honestly suck at it. I would take like an hour to do a 30-second radio commercial audition because I'll second guess it to Kingdom Come.
That's a problem.
As Scott was talking, it made me realize why, really, because as an actor, you really need to be directed, because if you're thinking about yourself, that's exactly what's going to come out. You're going to sound self-conscious, you're going to sound like you're trying to sound like something, or you're aiming for something. And in terms of advice, I don't know if you guys were asking specifically about promos or if you're talking about even commercials. The best approach that's ever worked for me is to look at a piece of copy and just have a point of view. Look at it and say, if you were the producer and you're trying to choose people, who would you want? And it's not so much what the person sounds like, because you only sound like whatever you sound like. You're in a certain range. You can be a little deeper. You can be a little, but at the end of the day, you sound like you. But you just think to yourself, like, what are they trying to sell? Or what are they trying to do? Are they trying to sell it with a low sell, like not much of a sell? Are they trying to just be real honest? Whatever they're trying to do, just put yourself in the shoes of the people and just kind of have a point of view. But then you have to actually do it and not play it doing it. And that's where you need the direction, because when you're finished doing it, you don't know how you did. When you play back and you go like, oh, I thought I did, that sucked. You know, then you can direct yourself when you hear it back, like play one back, like, oh God, no. I'll say that all the time. I say, give me a playback because I need a roadmap. I'll listen back and go like, oh God, okay, like I thought that was being really big. It was actually flat as hell.
You know? That's interesting.
That's true. So Mike, you were talking about, you know, trends and staying on top of, you know, the latest trends and stuff like that. My good friend Adam Bear says, What changes have you noticed in the last few years in trends? I mean, can you give us an example?
In terms of performance or direction?
I think the biggest thing for me, and I'm the rookie in this group. I mean, I've been doing this
15 minutes.
15 years. Yeah, it feels like 15 minutes. But the biggest change for me overall, and that's for trailers and promo, is that every piece of copy has non-announcery on it.
Yeah.
So when you said that was a bad word, you know, a few years ago.
I made a hat in 1995. It said non-announcer.
Nice.
I got tired of seeing it on scripts. I actually have a hat. I had it custom made. It says non-announcer. That's who I am. I'm the non-announcer.
At some point, we talked about the great Don LaFontaine earlier, but you know, there was a style when he was on top.
Yeah.
I think that, and you know, Joe was best friends with him, so he can speak to this more. But I think it. You know, I was on the East Coast. I was VO was on my radar, but I didn't know what it was all about. And I saw the Dateline that Don was on, the special with him. You know, and Don had a style, and that's what they were asking for in the movie trailers that I saw as a kid. Let's say. Then when I first got in, even that very first trailer that I mentioned earlier, sort of my break into the business with this movie, Love and Basketball, it's a Spike Lee movie, and the word on the street was that he wanted a voice that no one had heard, and that was really just saying the words, you know, and you're getting more and more of that now. Network-wise, I feel like it's the difference was, say, 8, 10, 15 years ago, it was, I guess, just more selly. It was more announce, more radio, more sell. And now they've really gone to the very approachable, low-key, the intimacy, I think, is where it's really at in terms of advice, too. I think that getting close and really working at an intimate level is what people are responding to. It's just more of an honesty about it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's just gone. It's just, I've seen it go over the course of my career. It's been, I don't know if it's going back to the way it used to be, but it's depending on the age of the producer. You know, it could be they want something that's different, and it could be very subtle.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get the job unless you can sort of figure out what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll just go back to what I said in how it changed way back when Fox came on the air. It was that really big voice, that really announcery sound, and then Fox wanted to do something that was different and more relatable to its audience. So that was a big change, and I was a part of that, and actually I guess I benefited from that when that happened. But about also changing styles and all, I just try to keep up with pop culture, you know, read the trades, how the shows are changing. Because really my focus is mostly television promos and in shows and things like that. So I just try to see what's getting greenlit, you know, and who the producers are and what's happening with it. So that's how I try to relate and change, you know.
I think the most important trend was when they started letting Italian guys.
Yeah, that was good.
Hey, that's not bad, right?
Cipriano and Romano.
That's right.
When they let the Italians in. No offense, Scott.
No, sorry, no offense.
It's because she came with unlimited breadsticks.
That's right. That's right. We used to bring garlic, you know, bring it, some tomato sauce.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that trend. That's a good
Italian trend.
They were scared
I
of
think
you.
we've all seen we've seen trends come, and we've seen
I'm
trends.
doing this promo.
That's right. I'll break your knee.
I dare you to hire somebody.
I was going to say that we've all seen trends come and go, and sometimes, you know, it's like it's the new hot trend. And I remember the vanilla voice trend, where it was just almost nothing, and everybody wanted the vanilla voice, which I don't know what that meant. It just was like the nothing voice for a long time, right? And then, you know, everybody was doing that, and then it kind of went away, but you still hear it. And then you'd hear the...
what is the vanilla voice?
Yeah,
I don't care read.
It's just the I don't care read. It's just kind of
I'm on my way out the door.
I remember one time we were doing this movie called Hitman, and they said to me that they wanted to try something really different. And that was that they wanted almost no voice at all. And I was like, okay, I'll play along.
Yeah.
And so I remember really trying to give them a read, and they go, no, you're not getting it. We want almost no voice.
Like whispering?
They didn't want to whisper, but almost no voice. And I remember doing this thing like this. I was right here doing the trailer, right?
Oh, bizarre.
And they're right. And They loved it. They were like, and I was like,
really?
Yeah.
Reno is repulsed.
No,
right now.
I'm repulsed because I've had it happen so many times.
Hang on. So I remember saying something like, he came out of the night. He is the hitman. Right?
Yeah.
I swear to you.
It's like ventriloquist.
Okay, so then I'm thinking that is the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life, right? Blah, 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 blah. And then I see the spot.
There are those who speak of a man bred from the world's deadliest criminals.
My mentor, Dawes Butler, would always tell me, the mic hears everything. The mic hears every nook and cranny. And when I heard the spot, I was like, wow, that was big and cool and stuff. So they liked that read. So the next movie they put me on, I think, was called Cloverfield, and we did the same thing, Cloverfield. You know, it was this whole thing, right? And so then it became this read, right? And it was like, hey, we want your Cloverfield Hitman read.
The invisible.
Yeah.
And we did this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we were doing, like, for a couple of years, I was doing this voice a lot.
You would just sit in the room and you'd be talking.
Just like that.
Barely.
And
Needless to
very
say, you never
interesting.
lost your voice.
Yeah.
And still occasionally, then everybody was doing that. They were doing a lot of this no voice thing just right here. And then occasionally it comes back. They go, hey, you know what, we want to try that really flat read on this.
Yeah.
And sometimes the juxtaposition of that flat read against incredible action, because in this trailer for Hitman, which I'm still very proud of, it was Ave Maria and stuff just getting blown to pieces.
Oh, wow.
And this voice, this
contrast.
voice, the contrast, and it was
Yeah.
like, you know, these guys knew what they were doing. I thought they were just being crazy, but it was a style, and I was actually really happy to be a part of that style for a little while. And I think what Mike was saying earlier is we have to be aware of these trends because, you know, the days of the big announcer are, you know, those, you know, when we grew up, that's what the TV guys were. Stay tuned next. It's gonna, you know, this whole, right?
Yeah.
That's gone. You know, it's only now back to make fun of it.
Right.
It's a
Right.
What's
It's
interesting
only-
though too, in terms of promo, I think, is that like you know, you can do it more in trailer, that sort of read, and it really works. I remember that trailer. I remember it was, and I knew that must have been low. I didn't know how intimate that was, but that seriously, that was awesome. The TV thing though, it's like it translates a little bit. You can do it a little bit,
Yeah.
but you've got to have some push. So that, in other words, that's an adjustment where trailers might be, you know, whispered. Then you got to give it a little bit more for promo, and then you'll get online to do a radio version, a radio spot of the same. And because you can't see anything, it's like this is radio, and you're sort of used to doing a show like for me with the ABC and the Goldbergs. It's like I do that for on air. And then I go to do a session for radio, and I have to make that adjustment and make it quickly.
Is the adjustment just more push?
Yeah, it's just a little bit more energy and a little more sell. And you're like, you know, you're thinking, I'm on this show for a reason. I don't want to rock the boat here. You want to keep it consistent. But it's just, it's a style for the medium.
Okay.
You know?
Wow, that's cool.
Can I say something about that real quick?
Yeah.
Of course.
Just it's interesting because it spoke to me that even you at the time were like, I've had that happen so many times where you're like, okay. And sometimes they're just saying, try something, throwing things against the wall. But what I wanted to say is it speaks to a couple of things we've talked about, like being directed or directing yourself. There's something really nice about someone really having a vision, saying, just do this thing for me. Then laying it into music, putting it down, and then you see it and you go, holy smokes, that really works.
Right.
And you can call it a trend or call it whatever you want, but I always used to think this, and I haven't thought it in a while, and I was going to share with you guys that it sounds like a bad thing, but it's a good thing that to be a really great voiceover, you really got to be a puppet, which means like just I'll do whatever you tell me to do. What do you want? You want big? You want small? Sure, because I can do that. I can be crazy big. Hey, I can be, you know, I'm the announcer guy, or you could be so flat that I don't really give a shit. I don't even know why I'm here. This is baloney. Sure, everything's the same. But you tell me what to do because you're making, you know, you're cooking. What do you need? Some of that.
That's right.
That?
Sure.
That's a really great point, Reno, because
it's not about your ego and it's about
here's what I just got out of that. A lot of people are so like, you know, well, how do I stay on top of the trends? Blah, blah. How can I book a promo? It's like, you know what? They know the trend. You need to be able to take direction and adjust to whatever they want out of you, right?
But if you know, like Joe was saying, and you keep up with the trend as much as you can, you're listening attentively to what the network promo guys are doing or trailers or whatever, and you walk in to do an audition, any of you that are interested in getting into that, you know, and you come out with the read of the moment, then for the particular piece that you're working on, you know, that really would impress, I would think. One thing I wanted to say quickly, though, about the feedback that was something. One of my biggest disappointments ever was very early on. It was the idea that some guys didn't think I was right for this particular job anymore, and I was so hurt because I was like, they talked to my agent about what they were looking for, but I'm like, I can do that. I just didn't know. The information wasn't trickling down to the room.
Right.
So it was. We are directable. That's what we take great pride in. And we love people with vision the most. The producer that has a specific vision is awesome. But if you don't get a chance, now once you work some, you have the privilege of being asked a lot of times. I think it's like if it's not exactly what we're looking for right out of the gate, then they'll work. They'll give you an opportunity. Just because they've heard us do a lot of work now, so you get a chance to do it.
Right.
To be directed.
Okay.
But I just remember that being a big lesson for me, is that you don't always get a chance. They give you that one chance, and then that might be it.
Yep.
Do you want a joke?
Sure.
A joke?
Is it funny?
It might be.
It's just like two guys walking into a bar?
It's like
Let's
how
hear it,
many
Rummell.
voiceover guys does it take to change a light bulb? It takes 10. 1 to change it and 9 to say, I could have done that.
Okay. Rummell had a joke. Yeah. Very
Scott's
good.
appearing at the Laugh Factory this weekend.
Hey, I'll be there.
Very good.
Well,
True.
I got a good one, and you guys
Very
are definitely
true.
going to have a lot to say about
this
this.
is a good
My good
question.
friend Sonny Warner, hi Sonny, asks, timing is such a huge component when it comes to doing promos. Do you have any tips or beliefs when it comes to timing?
I had a few years in a very small market radio station, and what I credit my timing, my sense of timing that seems to be locked in now, is from that job. Because what I would do is I would sell some copy, sell some ad time that I wouldn't have time to cut a commercial, let's say, and it needs to go on the air the next morning. It's a special sale for Western Auto, and it's the next morning. So I would read it to time, and having sold a 30-second spot, that's what I was going to read it to, And I think just by repetition, I got really good at understanding what 15 seconds was and then in terms of shaving that off, I don't know. I think it must just be doing it over and over again, because I find it unbelievable how often I can do it. I remember Scott talking about this. We were on a panel discussion a year or two ago, but shave a second, you got 10 frames to work with, and then it just works out, and it's just, I don't
30
know.
frames in a second.
And aren't you guys stunned when they go, you need to shave 5 frames, and they go, perfect, you did it?
Yeah.
You go,
Or give me another one just like,
do
do a 29.5-second read, and then give me another one just like that, and it's 29.5.
But after those 10,000 hours, we get that clock in our head. It just happens.
We used to play a game at Fox. We would guess, the mixer and I would guess how many frames are left. And
just for those people that maybe don't understand when you're talking about frames.
30
you're
frames.
talking about the frames.
Sorry, 30 frames per second.
Per second, yeah.
So 15 frames is half a second, 5 frames is whatever.
And we do leave at the end of a promo, depending on the network, it could be 10 frames you need to leave clear, or 8 frames, so that you don't get that clipped at the end when it goes into the next spot, But radio was a great background for me, for getting that timing thing.
Yeah.
And it's and it's so important in promo to be able to fit in those little bits and pieces.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Just doing it over and over again.
For you, repetition?
Yeah, we're just getting the chance to do it. But the truth is, timing, a great skill to have for promo is the ability to talk fast. And I just naturally had that. Being a Canadian kid, I guess, we talk fast. And also being able to talk fast and not sound like you're talking fast.
The story is still coming out.
And trying not to sound panicked, just calming down. In other words, you can sound just as fast as you just did, but it's okay. Just tell
Kind of
yourself
like
it's
you're
okay.
doing right now,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
And Reno you probably would agree that it's not just being able to talk fast, but it's knowing what things can go fast. Because you got a phrase, right? And in that phrase, you're going to find that there's 4 really important words that have to come out. And so you have to mentally adjust and say, okay, the top sentence can go fast, and then I got to hit this word, hit this word. And so those are the choices. And sometimes...
And then you're hitting graphics, too, sometimes.
And you're hitting graphics, and that's a whole other thing, because we're not seeing the graphics. And so... that's why we're really following along our scripts and seeing, okay, that's graphic, okay. And but the timing issue is a key, and I don't really know how to tell somebody to do that. We were talking about taking some workshops. When I was learning, there was nobody that was doing workshops where you could read the picture.
Right.
And now there are those workshops. I had a very lucky break. I got a show called Real Stories of the Highway Patrol.
That's right.
I did 500 episodes of that, and I read the picture, and I read the time code.
Oh, God.
And it was really, that was my going to college to learn how to read the picture. And so when I did get to CBS that day, I really had a sense of it, you know. And back then we were looking at time code too.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And you'd watch that little number go down, like, I gotta get out of there.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the only thing I'll say that maybe is a technique is when you do have to shave something, you have to shave a half second or 10 frames or whatever you're doing, is that you have to do it over the course of that entire line.
Right.
You know, a lot of times, you know, you get stuck into da-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba. You know, so you just have to time compress yourself over the entire.
Yeah, you find that a lot, even with just like a tag. Like Scott was saying, the title of the show is obviously very important, and they want that. You know, you have 3.5 seconds to say this tag, then you may do a take, and they'll say just sort of spread that out. You know, so it doesn't sound like it's one-sided. You know, so it's just get better and better. In terms of practice at home, or unless you're going to be able to do a workshop, I would just encourage like work with copy and a stopwatch, you know, on your phone, and just kind of get a sense of how many words you can say in 30 seconds.
You become very aware of time. And, you know, it's, for example, say CBS or NBC or whatever, any network, they say, well, let's throw in CBS Monday. And somebody said to me once, you know, that's 3 more words that you just gave me. C, B, and S are, you know, you got to fit those in there. And sometimes you're just not. There's no room.
Yeah.
You know?
Or 8-7 Central.
Yeah, really.
They think it just looks like that.
Yeah.
8-7.
Just a couple
It's
numbers
an
and a
8/7 and a C.
Yeah.
But it's 8-7 Central. It's
Right.
3. It's, you know, almost a whole
big
sentence,
words.
right?
Yeah.
And so the key there is, and I would say too, prepare for the worst when you're with the stopwatch. If you can get really good at reading something very, very quickly, then you can read it great slowly. Okay, and so if you're preparing for the worst and you're giving it to them a bit too fast, that's the best scenario.
Right.
Because many times they will write us a 5-second spot, and the first time you read it, it's going to come in at 6. And taking a second out of a 5-second spot is completely different than taking a second out of a 30-second spot.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, just a quick little thing. That night that Don talked to us, he said the coolest thing. He said, if you're trying to do something super fast and it's not working, he said, say it as slow as you possibly can. He said, because if you do, you'll find where your tongue has to get around a certain word or where the hiccups are. Just say it as slow as you possibly can to get your brain around it, and then just start doing it a little faster. And by the end of it, you're just like, whap.
Boom.
Yeah,
that's good.
Which is really
That's
cool.
great.
That's
That's
great.
great. Well, obviously, Don LaFontaine, huge impact on so many people.
Yep.
But for you guys, was there a piece of advice you got along the way that really helped you in your career?
From Don?
No, from anybody.
Well, Don gave me a great piece of advice. He said, every movie is the best movie. And I never forget that every time I'm reading.
Yeah.
Every movie is the biggest movie of the summer, is the greatest movie of the year, every movie. And I made the mistake a few times of seeing movies before I was done with the campaign.
Yeah.
And I try not to make that mistake anymore, because sometimes the biggest campaigns are for the worst movies. You know?
Wow.
But
That's good.
But that was
I like
great.
that.
Great. That's great.
You know, it's funny. We're talking about Don. It's coming around that Don gave us these words of advice, and it was for me too. And it was to find all of your voices when I was going through a really particularly bad time. And he said to me, "The voice that you're speaking in right now is nowhere near what you work at. You know, when you're doing those high energy promos, explore that voice." And I ended up working at NBC doing dramas for 2 years because I would have never even thought of that.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say kind of what Scott was saying too about you know, getting advice, and I can't remember who it was from, but probably from one of these guys. You know, appreciating the fact that no matter what show it is you're working on, the hard work that went into that, and how many families that affects. You know, like the people that are working so hard on that promo. That you're doing a lot of promos in a day, and I think if you put every promo on the same level, and no job is more important than another one, then your standard of quality is always there. And I just think being a nice guy and being appreciative of what we have, frankly. There's a lot of legendary stories about guys in the old days that, you know, had these big attitudes, and every time I hear those stories, I mean, I laugh at them in a way, but
Well, you guys are definitely 4 amazing guys. We are so grateful. We know our viewers are so grateful that you came on and shared so much of your time. We're here on a weekend, by the way. Thank you for opening your clubhouse to us. And,
oh, it's great having you guys here. This was fun.
We wish you continued abundance and success. And
we love hearing you on TV every day.
Yeah.
Can I say thanks for doing the show? Because I didn't know about the show until Joe invited me to do this, and then I've I've been trying to catch up on episodes. But this is such a great tool for all the guys that watch and want to start their careers.
We were all just talking about that earlier. How we wish we had something like what you guys provide. You know, to get to hear these kind of one-on-one interviews and. It's great.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
You guys
Thanks,
rock.
guys.
Hey, this is Mike McColl, and I just got buzzed with Chuck and Stacey.
It's Joe Cipriano. Sunday, it's an all-new VO Buzz Weekly.
I'm Rino Romano, and I just got buzzed with Chuck and Stacey. I just got buzzed with Chuck and Stacey. I just got buzzed with Chuck and Stacey.
I'm Scott Rummell. I just got buzzed with Chuck and Stacey.
Well, that's all we have for the Promo King segment here on VO Buzz Weekly. But you guys better be back next week, because you know what next week is?
100.
Woohoo! It's going to be a party around here. We got some good stuff coming for you. And join us.
Absolutely. Keep up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest at VO Buzz Weekly. Thanks for watching, guys. And just remember, you always have time for a little buzz.